Hey guys, it's your girl Designers Me. Welcome back to Designers Me Daily, where we design our own clothes, we design our own business, and we design our own lives. And in today's video, it is another video in my Sunday set series. Now guys, I have to apologize. I know you guys have been waiting for this upload since 6 p.m. today. However, what I realize is when YouTube does its copyright checks, sometimes within the first 24 to 48 hours, your video might pass the copyright checks, and then it's after the fact, you may get a copyright claim being made against said video. So that is what happened with this video. I had to pull the video down, make some edits, and I am still trying to work my way around finding music that is copyright free, like 100% copyright free. So in the interest of making sure that we can actually monetize the videos that we upload, this video is actually going to be a substitute video, and it's going to be a basic straight fitted skirt with a center front slit that I'm actually going to be making for my sister. Now my sister actually saved the day when it came to this upload. If I was not making this skirt, I would still probably be fighting tooth and nail to get the previous video up for you guys. However, when she asked me to create this skirt for her for church, I was like, okay, great, I'm gonna do it for you, and this is going to take the place of today's upload. So next week, please God, the very first design that I would have sketched at the beginning of the video, that is the video that you guys are going to be getting. But in this video, we're just gonna create a nice basic skirt for my sister, and I hope you guys enjoy. So right now, all I'm doing is drafting her pattern. You guys do not need a detailed walkthrough of how to draft a basic fitted straight skirt pattern. However, if you do need a refresher, or maybe you're new to drafting, you're new to fashion and design, you're new to pattern making, then let me just give you guys a quick walkthrough as to what I'm doing. Now, the first thing I did was I used my L square ruler, and I placed my horizontal line and my vertical line, my two major lines, which is my waistline and my center front line, and every other line I would have measured and plot based on those lines, right? My circumference measurements, I would have divided by 4. So my hip circumference measurement, I divided by 4. I would have mirrored that exact same measurement down to my hem because it's a straight skirt, and I would have connected those lines. I would have divided my waist circumference by 4 as well, plotted that point, connected that line, and I always make edits to my lines because there are no peaks or sharp areas on the body. The body is nice and rounded, so therefore all of your lines should always be nice and curved, and it should always flow effortlessly and gracefully into one another, unless it's intentional for a line to have a peak. So I made the edit to the peak on my hip. I adjusted the waistline by dropping it 1 inch at the center front. I added an additional inch for my dart. I went ahead and I trued my dart to make sure that the waistline maintains its shape when the dart is closed. And while I was drafting, I remember that my sister is actually fasting, so I know she would have lost a bit of weight. Therefore, her measurements that I would have had from months ago may not necessarily be the exact same measurements. So I would have measured her waist again, and I realized that instead of 28 inches, her waist is actually 27 inches. So even though I would have added an additional inch at the side seam on her waist so that the dart actually makes sense, I did go ahead and ignore the addition, and I just kept the original line that I would have drawn, right? So you guys see that I'm erasing it right now, and that is because her waist is actually 27, so there's no need for it to be bigger, right? What I'm doing now is I am actually taking into consideration that the fabric is extremely stretchy. So I took off a 1/2 inch, and then instead of adding allowance on the outside, I added my stitch line on the inside. Now, what I want you guys to remember is I'm going to be constructing this skirt using a front seam. So my allowance is going to be 1/2 inch. Now I am using the same pattern for both the front and the back. So I'm making some minor adjustments to the pattern while I am cutting it on the fabric. Right now I'm just testing out the direction of the stretch. We always want the stretchiest part of the fabric to be stretching around the body and not necessarily downwards. So I'm just making sure that that is what I'm getting. I'm cutting my back first because the back is going to be cut on fold, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm just pinning my pattern on, and the only change that I'm making to this pattern while I'm cutting is the center back. The back of the skirt is usually a little bit higher on the waist, so therefore I do not need to follow the curve of the drop that I would have put on the pattern. I am notching my darts as well as notching my high hip and my hip at the side seam, and I'm also marking the end of the darts. Back darts are usually 4.5 to 5 inches in length, as opposed to front darts that are usually 3.5 to 4 inches in length. So I'm using the same pattern again, and this time we are cutting the front of our skirt, and I am making sure to leave 1 inch allowance where the hem opening, sorry, not the hem, the slit opening is going to be. So from the start of the slit to the hem, we want 1 inch allowance, and from the start of the slit to the waist, we want a 1/2 inch allowance for that French seam. Everything else remains the same on the pattern. I'll be just following along the pattern as you can see here. I'm also notching my darts for this one as well as my high hip and my hip on the side seam. I'm also marking the end of my dart so that we can start construction. And you guys know, when we are constructing anything, we always start with our darts. Once they are darts, we always start with our darts. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just closing off my darts. Once my darts are closed off, I am going to put my left and right front pieces together, and I'm going to close off the seam using a French seam. Now, just a recap, guys, if you guys are new to front seams, you usually put the two pieces of fabric together, wrong sides facing one another. The good side of the fabric is where you are stitching on first, and it's a 1/4 inch stitch away from the edge. You then trim 1/8 of an inch and then turn the fabric inside out, which is what I just did. And you are finishing off the stitch with a 1/4 inch stitch away from the folded edge of the fabric, which is what I'm doing now. So once I am done putting the left and right piece of my front together, and I'm pleased with the way that it looks, you guys could see everything is nice and neat on the outside, nice and neat on the inside, and I'm super happy with the way that it's turning out. Now I'm going to move on with closing off my slit, and because we left a full 1 inch allowance for our slit, I'm going to fold that allowance 1/2 inch and then 1/2 inch again, and I'm just pinning on both sides, and then we're going to just run a quick top stitch along the folded part of the slit. Great. So once that is done, I'm just moving on to my back piece, and of course I am closing off my darts first things first. Once my darts are closed off, I'm going to close off the side seams, putting my front and back piece together, and we're closing off the side seams using a front seam again. So guys, remember I told you all that what we were using to make this skirt is literally the scrap pieces that remained from the first skirt that I created in last week's upload, which was the very long fitted skirt with the center back slit and the circular flared ruffles. Now, after we cut the body of this skirt that we're making right now, all that was left was this little piece of fabric, and the stretch, like the majority of the stretch, is actually going in this downward direction. So it means the stretch that usually goes around the body was that it was stretching. It was very, very limited stretch. So what I had to do was, instead of cutting it to be a little bit smaller than her waist, the way how the skirt is cut to be a little bit smaller than her measurement so that it stretches, we had to cut the exact amount that is her waist plus an extra inch for allowance. And when I'm finished constructing the waistband and the skirt, putting it together, you guys are going to notice that the waistband is actually a little bit bigger than the skirt. So it is going to be a little bit wavy and ripply. However, the whole point of that is so that when she puts the skirt on, the body of the skirt is going to fit and stretch the way that it's supposed to, but the waistband is going to fit her exactly the way that it's supposed to. So even though it doesn't look like super appealing when it's not on her body, when it's actually on her body, it's going to fit the way that it needs to. So I mean, it's not ideal because it doesn't really look the best when, you know, it's not on her body, but it's really just about perfect fit. So that is literally what I did. What I'm doing right now is I am attaching the waistband to the waist, but instead of stitching one single layer of the waistband to the waist of the skirt and then folding it again and stitching it a second time, I am literally just stitching the 2 layers of the waistband directly to the skirt. So in the event that when she tries it on, let's say she tries it on and it doesn't fit the way that I am anticipating it to fit, if I need to rip the waistband off of the skirt, I don't have to rip 2 stitches, it's just 1 stitch. And especially when you're dealing with knit fabrics, you do not want to be stitching and ripping 3 million times, because you are going to end up with permanent holes and tears in your fabric, which is not the ideal thing considering we are using scrap fabric and we really do not have the excess fabric to waste. So that is the plan. When we are done with our waistband, we are going to let my sister try on her skirt. I really hope that she likes it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I apologize again that this video is so late, but I know that when you guys see next week's upload, you guys are gonna be, it's gonna be worth the wait. The final stitch that I am placing on the skirt, of course, is the hem, and the hem allowance that we left, I think, was 1 inch, or actually I think it was 2 inches on the pattern, but because we really do not want to compromise on the length of the skirt, I am just folding 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch again for a total of 1 full inch. So this is the final stitch, guys. Let's go ahead and have my sister try on the skirt and let's see how she feels about it. All right, guys, so my sister was super happy with the way that the skirt turns out. Based on her happy dance, I think the skirt passed the vibe check. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys in my next upload.